YouTube, Ninja Midget here. This is going to be the complete assembly of the Polish P64 pistol. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and get our sear in place. The sear goes in the gun just like this. And this is the way the hammer is when it's in the gun. There's your resting position. There's cocked right there. So that's how your hammer interacts with your sear. This little spike goes forward. It's easiest if you have some pliers. Get some pliers, and what you want to do is you're going to turn it on its side, get your pin handy, and then when you get in there, you're going to turn it around flat and move it up into place. Kind of wants to wiggle around on you a little bit. Is that it? There. Where is that? There it is. That was a little bit of a pain in the neck, but hey, it's in there now. Look at that. Okay, next you're going to put your disconnector in. Put your disconnector in, you're going to turn it sideways, slide it in, and then lay it flat. It lays in there flat, just inside the recess. Goes. Okay, so I'm laying flat. It looks like it is. So now comes the tricky part, and this is where it helps to have something like these little clamps. They grip things really well. Little surgical clamps. The longer side goes toward the right of the gun, so it's going to go on right like this. You're going to put your spring on, and you're going to have your pin handy, because what you're going to do is you're going to slide this into this hole, unless of course it doesn't want to work with me. Just does not want to work with me here. It looks like it's not even in that hole. There it is. I think that's in the hole now. Let's see. Turn you this way a little bit. See if that gets you in there. There it is. Oh boy. That is a serious pain in the neck to get that to go in, boys and girls. And then you want to make sure that it goes in all the way. On this side you can see that that is not quite matching up. There you go. You want that to slide all the way through. And then there it is. Now, keep that sucker from walking out on you. You want to put this screw in right here. Oops, banging my camera yet again. Okay, and that screw does not need to be crazy tight. Just snug it down. Then your hammer is going to go ahead and go in. That takes a little bit of wrestling around. Move the sear up. this is another one of those things where you really kind of could use 3 hands. Move the sear up out of the way, and then you can get this in over here. Get your hammer pin in, if it'll work with me here. And there we go. There's our hammer pin in. There's your full cock. Release the sear. Down it comes. Now, the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to get our hammer strut and our spring. We have our last little pin here. That's going to be for getting, for holding this in place. Slide your hammer strut up inside there like that until it slides into place. Hold this right here so you can push that pin in. Usually goes in pretty easy. Okay, there's your hammer. You're going to go ahead and cock it, and then you're going to release this pin, and then we can test our trigger function. And so we have, let's get our double action is working, single action is working. That is it for the frame, except of course, getting a little ahead of myself. That's not it for the frame. We need to put our grips on. And the grips just slide into place nicely. Sometimes they don't want to go on as easy as you think they should, but it's not bad. And we get our screw. There we go. Get our screw in there. Get our little nut on the back here. Hold that in place so we can screw the grips on. And there we go. Alright. Excellent. Alright, we are good to go on the frame. It's a little bit of a pain in the neck, all in all, but take your time and you get it back together. It just takes a little working with it. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and work on our trigger. And for the trigger, what really helps is having a little slave pin. Now this is just a little piece of a Q-tip that I wrapped a couple layers of tape around so that it'll fit in this hole snug enough to hold it so I can get it up in place. It really helps. I mean, you can do it without it. I've done it before, but it really is a pain. So you want the long spur of this spring going forward to the forward part of the trigger, and you're going to go ahead and push this pin through. Keep that spring captive. The spring needs to be completely flush or it won't work. And then what you want to do is you are going to push this up in here, but the trick is that spring wants to go forward. We want that spring to go back, so you're going to use an awl or something to push that back while you're pushing this in, and it's a little tricky. It's like you need 3 hands. Just kind of get that in place there, and after you get that in place, then you can go ahead and push your trigger up in place, and you can get that in the right position, and your pin needs to go in from the other direction, as I have just snagged my towel here. There we go. Alright, so this pin goes in from this side. It's just easier to get that all set up from the other side. And you're going to want to see about getting this pin started in here. And there it goes. Starts pushing that out. Okay. So, once you got that started, you're just going to orient it in the right position. Pushes the little dummy pin out for you. And there you go. You're good to go. Okay, Now, what we're going to want to do next is we're going to get our trigger bar in. And our trigger bar, this little spring down in here, needs to go underneath it. So we'll get this started in here. And then what we want to do is we're going to go in from this side, pull our spring down, and get that up in place there so that we can slide this down into position. And there is our trigger bar installed. Okay, now next we're going to go ahead and we're going to do our slide stop. This little spring goes in just like this. Pain in the neck to put together. Is that it? Is that it? Not quite. It's not in there. Push it on back a little bit. There she goes. There it is. There's your slide stop. Slide stop, trigger bar, and we are good to go. Okay, now for the slide. First things first, we're going to go ahead and get our extractor in place. And for that, your spring is just going to go straight down in here. Goes all the way down in there. And then you have this piece. This is your extractor plunger. It has the flat on it. And that flat is going to go down toward the inside of the gun. So when you put that in there, you want to make sure that that flat is down. It doesn't have to be perfect, just somewhat in the down position. And then for your extractor, you have to slide it underneath this lip right here. Get it started in like this. And then you're going to go ahead and pull back your plunger with a little flathead screwdriver. That's a very stiff spring. So pull that back, get it in place, and that flat is not working on here for me here. Let's see here. See if I can get that flat on there. Because it's in now, but that should have sprung forward. I've actually never had this happen like this before. Let me see. Almost. There she is. Alright, there's your extractor in place. Not too difficult, all in all, to go ahead and get that in there. Okay, so next on our slide, we're going to want to get in our, this is our chamber loaded indicator. And an interesting thing to note with this, let me focus this in a little bit so I can show you this. Let's see, there we go. This goes in the gun with this facing down, this sloped face, and it can only go together that way because there's a channel on this. This is not a round rod, it's got flats on the sides. So this has to go in just like that. That's what it looks like when it's in the gun. So what we're going to want to do, and this is another one of those things on this gun, it takes a little bit of finagling and teasing it into the right place and getting it just right, and then it'll go in. So we want that to be straight up and down. So go in with a toothpick, move it around so it's straight up and down. From there, we want to, I use some plastic tip pliers so that I don't have magnetism working against me here, and you're going to drop this in place. Right like that. And just get it right so it's right in place like this. Let me focus this in a little bit here. I'll just lift it up. needs to be right in place like that. And you do have the end protruding here. Actually, it could be protruding a little tiny bit more, but that's probably fine. See how that's protruding out? Now what you want to do on this is let me focus this out a little bit again here. We're going to put a screwdriver in right behind this, and then we're going to go ahead and take a punch and push this down while we're pulling the screwdriver back. And what that should do is that should let this slide down in place. And it doesn't look like it quite did, so we're going to go ahead and try that again. We're going to, there it is. Now it slid straight down in place. So there it is. Let me get my focus here. There it is, right in place. If you line it up right, it's pretty simple to get in place. If it's not lined up, it's just not going to go. So setting it up so that it's in the ideal position so that can just slide down, just slip down in there as soon as it's clear to, that's the way to go with that. Okay, so the next part that we're going to work on is the firing pin. We're going to go ahead and put that in, and it goes in like this with this little part toward the side. Now it will go in with the part facing up, but the gun will not function. Trust me, I tried it that way. It does not work. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that in from the side, and we're going to grab our clamping tool, our surgical tool, and get that ready to go, because what I'm going to do is push this firing pin in and hold it there, and it's really kind of tricky. It wants to jump up on you. It wants to jump out on you, rather. So, almost had it. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this again. Alright. Nope. It did not work. A little tricky because it wants to go in just one way. Doesn't like to go in unless it's perfectly straight. And there we go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to clamp that in place so that's held back in there. Now what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and get our detent and our spring. This always works a little bit better if you have a toothpick to help get this spring in here. The spring just goes right down inside this little hole in here. There it goes. Now we're going to want to have our safety handy so we can get that started, but what we want to do is we're going to drop this little detent down in there. Get some light here. I don't have enough light. That little detent, there it is down in there. And what you want to do is you want to coax that thing into the hole where the spring is at. There's just enough room for it to get seated down inside that hole. You got to kind of coax it into place so that it falls down inside that hole. There's just enough room in that hole so it'll go down and it'll sit just like that. Maybe this one will work for me. Did that do it? One must wonder. Doesn't look like it did. started. Now what you need to do is kind of push this over because it wants to walk on you. And there we go. Release our firing pin. And there it is. All in and together. The whole slide. Now, the spring, of course, the tight side goes on the back. One thing about this spring, this is a wolf spring that I got to lighten the recoil spring a little bit. When you get these, this little side right here, let me get my focus here. This side is not filed off, and what happened was when I was putting this in the gun, these sides had not been flattened, so it wouldn't go on. The slide would not go on because of that. So if you get these wolf spring kits, be aware that that might be the case, that you might have to do that. Alright, so now the only thing left to do, slide the slide on, release our hammer, oops, put our mag in, make sure our slide stop is working. It is. Take that out, make sure our double action is working, single action is working, make sure that our decocker is working, deactivates the trigger, and let's see about the reset. Okay, looking good. And that is the complete assembly of the Polish P64. A little tricky, a little bit of a pain in the neck sometimes, but if you just take your time, try not to launch any springs across the room, you'll be fine. Thanks for watching. Oh shit. Dan, you're stupid. Dan, you're stupid. How fucking dumb can you be? You just got this whole fucking thing together and now you gotta take it apart again because you're stupid. Oh my god.